Pathetic. Look at them, smirking like they own the place. Judge Malcolm Wilder didn't bother lowering his voice. His words sliced through courtroom 4B as two black teenagers stood at the defense table, wrists chained, orange jumpsuits too big for their thin shoulders. Celeste Bradford stared back, jaw clenched. Her twin brother's shoulders stiffened beside her. "Twin delinquents," Malcolm sneered. "Maybe prison will teach you what your parents clearly failed to." The heavy doors slammed open so hard the walls shook. "Enough!" a voice thundered. "Take that back, Malcolm. Those are my children." The entire courtroom went silent. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Celeste Bradford thought the world had frozen, trapping her in the exact moment she most wanted to disappear. Her wrists were sweating inside the cold metal cuffs, her jumpsuit itching where the fabric scratched her collarbone. She had been called a lot of things in the last 48 hours: thief, troublemaker, suspect. But twin delinquent from the judge himself still stunned her. Then the doors flew open. The man who stepped in moved like a storm in a tailored charcoal suit. Broad shoulders, dark brown skin, salt and pepper beard, eyes burning with something between fury and fear. His gaze went straight past the gallery, past the prosecutor's table, past even the judge on the bench. He was looking at her. "Celeste," he breathed. The word caught in his throat. "Jalen." Her brother flinched at his name. "Oh, hell no," Jalen muttered under his breath. "You've got to be kidding me." "Sir, you cannot interrupt these proceedings," the bailiff barked, stepping forward. The stranger ignored him and strode down the aisle. The gallery buzzed, whispers, phones rising subtly, viral content in the making, another courtroom moment for the internet. Judge Malcolm Wilder slammed his gavel. "Order! You will remove that man if he takes one more—" "Sit down, Malcolm," the man snapped without looking up. "Don't talk about my kids like that again." The tone he used, like he had known the judge his whole life, rippled across the room. Celeste's mind scrambled. "My kids?" She turned fully to stare at him. She knew that face, even if she'd only seen it in photos hidden at the back of her mother's closet. Photos she pretended she didn't sneak glances at some nights. "Dad." The word slipped out before she could stop it, shaky and disbelieving. The courtroom gasped as one. Judge Wilder's mouth dropped open, then snapped shut so fast his teeth clicked. For the first time since she had walked into this courtroom, Celeste saw something other than bored contempt in his eyes. He went pale. "Tucker," he said carefully, "what are you doing here?" The man in the suit finally looked up at the bench, eyes narrowing. "What I should have done a long time ago," he said. "Standing between you and the kids you keep throwing away." The bailiff hesitated, looking between the two men. "Your Honor, you know him?" Malcolm's jaw flexed. "Remove him," he hissed. "Now!" Tucker Wilder lifted his hands slowly, surrender style, but his voice stayed iron. "My name is Tucker Wilder," he announced, loud enough for every phone mic to catch. "These twins are my son and daughter, and if you're going to destroy their lives in this courtroom, Malcolm, you're going to have to do it in front of your own brother." The gallery erupted. Someone swore. Someone else whispered, "No way! The judge's niece and nephew?" Celeste felt the floor tilt beneath her. "Brother?" She flicked her gaze between the judge and the man who claimed to be her father, confusion roaring in her ears. Judge Wilder's gavel came down so hard the sound bounced off the wood panels. "Recess," he snapped. 30 minutes. Bailiff, clear my courtroom. And get him out of my sight." As the room exploded into movement, shuffling feet, muttered curses, reporters already halfway out the door to call their editors, Celeste stood frozen between the man on the bench and the man in the aisle. For the first time since the police had slammed her against that cold squad car hood, she wasn't sure who scared her more, the judge who wanted to lock her away, or the father who had finally shown up now that it might be too late. 48 hours earlier, Celeste Bradford's biggest problem had been a scholarship essay. "Read it again," she told Jalen, shoving her laptop towards him across the scarred kitchen table. He groaned. "I've read this thing more times than the Bible." "And you still can't remember to take the trash out, so clearly repetition is necessary." Their mother's apartment was small, one of those places where footsteps upstairs made the ceiling dust rain down, but Celeste loved it anyway. The Sunday light spilling through the blinds brushed the edges of their second-hand furniture, turning chipped wood into something softer. Jalen pushed his locks back and squinted at the screen. "Okay. I believe in responsibility and truth because—" He stopped, smirking. "You sound like a 60-year-old pastor." "It's a scholarship for future community leaders, not TikTok comedians," Celeste said, snatching the laptop back with a sigh. "If I don't nail this, I can kiss college goodbye. Or you could let your genius brother make us rich with his mixtape. Your last mixtape had 3 listeners, and 2 were our neighbors trying to figure out where that noise was coming from." He clutched his chest dramatically. "My own twin, my biggest hater." Before she could retort, the front door opened and their mother came in, uniform tired and hair frizzing at the edges from the humidity. Maya Bradford dropped her tote bag, leaning against the wall. "Don't you two ever sit quietly?" she asked, but there was a hint of a smile. "Mom, guess what?" Celeste turned the laptop around. "If I get this essay right, I can get a full ride to Holloway." Maya's eyes softened, then flickered to the clock. "We can celebrate after your shifts. Don't forget, the councilman's fundraiser is tonight. They need you both there on time." The fundraiser. That word put a sour taste in Celeste's mouth. Councilman Reeves, white, smiling too hard, always talking about keeping our streets clean, had been all over the news lately. His campaign centered on cracking down on youth crime. Celeste had seen the footage of kids who looked like her being thrown on hoods, their faces slammed into asphalt. She'd written half her essay about that. But work was work. The catering company paid, and their mom needed every dollar. Hours later, the community center had transformed into something unrecognizable. White tablecloths, glittering lights, a string quartet in the corner trying to drown out the low murmur of wealthy donors in expensive suits. Celeste balanced a tray of canapes on her palm, moving between clusters of people. "Smile, honey," the catering manager hissed as she rushed by. "These people pay extra to feel important." On stage, Councilman Reeves gripped the podium like it personally owed him money. "With the support of our partners in law enforcement, like the Honorable Judge Malcolm Wilder." The applause that followed made Celeste's skin crawl. There he was, Judge Wilder, sitting near the front in a dark suit that probably cost more than their rent for a year. He didn't clap with enthusiasm, just a few polite taps, but his presence was enough. "We are funding a pilot program with the Wilder Foundation," Reeves continued, "to ensure that troubled youth are given the firm guidance they need." Celeste glanced over at the kids from the neighborhood who'd come to help set up, and then been told they couldn't stay, couldn't be seen at the event itself. Her hands tightened on the tray. Responsibility and truth, she had written in her essay draft. But nights like this made those words feel fragile. She found Jalen in the back hallway, leaning against a stack of folding chairs, scrolling through his phone. "You're supposed to be passing drinks," she reminded him. "Relax, sis. No one's dying of thirst." "What are you watching?" Jalen turned the screen. A live stream. The camera panned across the same room they were in, comments flooding the bottom. "Look at all that money while the kids' center leaks when it rains." Wilder Foundation? Should be Wilder Prison Pipeline. Ask them why they shut down the after-school program but added 2 more squad cars. "People are mad," Jalen said quietly, "and they're not wrong." Before Celeste could answer, the sound of raised voices cut down the hall. "I told you, you don't belong back here." A security guard, and a thinner, nervous male voice. "Bro, I'm just trying to pick up my sister. Without a pass, you're trespassing. Get out." Celeste set her tray down and moved toward the sound, Jalen right behind her. They turned the corner to see a black teen, maybe 16, pressed against the wall, the guard's hand flat on his chest. "Hey," Celeste said, keeping her voice calm. "He's telling the truth. They kicked the younger volunteers out earlier. He's probably just—" The guard shot her a glare. "Staff only. You want to lose your paycheck?" Behind them, a door stood slightly ajar. Through the crack, Celeste saw stacks of boxes labeled Records, Holloway Youth Diversion, Confidential. A laptop glowed on a folding table, a spreadsheet open with rows of names, and there on the screen she saw it. Youth Diversion Program, Budget Reallocation, Wilder Foundation. The numbers were shocking. Money that was supposed to be for community programs had been moved somewhere else. A lot of it. "Celeste," Jalen murmured, seeing where her gaze had gone. The guard followed their line of sight. "Hey, back off!" He moved to slam the door shut, but not before Celeste caught one more line on the screen. Case prioritization, black youth, mandatory detention, no diversion. Something inside her snapped. She stepped forward, words spilling out. "So that's what this is," she said. "You shut down the center to fund your pilot program, so you can lock up more kids and make it look like you're tough on crime." The guard's face hardened. "I said back off. All of you. Now." He reached for his radio. "Don't," Jalen said quietly. "Come on, man. You really want to call the cops on us for standing here?" The guard hesitated for half a second, then pressed the button. "Yeah," he said. "Because kids like you? You're exactly what this program is about." The police showed up faster than Celeste thought possible. 1 minute she was arguing, the next her cheek was grinding against the hood of a squad car, hands wrenched behind her. Jalen was shouting, words swallowed by the officer's barked commands. "Didn't do anything! Stop resisting!" Her pulse thundered in her ears. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Councilman Reeves emerge from the building, flanked by staff. "What happened?" he demanded. "Caught these two in the records room," the guard said. "Looked like they were trying to mess with the files. Could be connected to that protest stuff online." Reeves's eyes flicked over Celeste and Jalen, something cold and calculating behind his concern. "We can't let anyone jeopardize our work," he said. "Press is still here. Handle it." That was how it started. Not with a grand plan. Just with a girl who wanted to read a spreadsheet and a system that would rather put her in chains than let her see the truth. Malcolm Wilder stared at the empty courtroom, gavel still in his hand, and felt the past creep up on him like a cold draft. "Your Honor, they're waiting in chambers." The bailiff's voice snapped him back. He cleared his throat. "Yes, of course." The moment the doors closed behind him in his chambers, the facade cracked. He tossed the gavel on his desk more forcefully than necessary and yanked off his glasses. "Tucker," he muttered. "Of all the people to walk through that door today." Gemma Ford, assistant district attorney, stood near the bookshelf, tablet in hand. She was in her early 30s, sharp bob, sharp suit, sharper eyes. She had been riding the fast track in the DA's office, and this case, attempted tampering with official records and obstruction, as the charges read, was supposed to be routine. "Your Honor," she began, careful, "if there's a conflict of interest—" "There is no conflict of interest," Malcolm snapped, then immediately regretted the bite in his tone. "Those kids are accused of serious crimes. Their father showing up doesn't change that." "It does if their father is your brother," Gemma said softly. He shot her a look. "Is that in the file now, too? Maybe we should add a note. Defendants related to disgraced Wilder sibling. Gemma's fingers tightened around her tablet. She knew the public version of the story. Everyone in legal circles did. 2 Wilder brothers, one golden, one fallen. Malcolm, the younger, had become a respected judge, darling of the law and order crowd. Tucker, the older, had disappeared years ago in a cloud of rumors, embezzlement, substance issues, a bar fight that turned ugly. The details shifted depending on who told it. But the core message was always the same. Tucker Wilder was trouble. "Do you want to step aside?" Gemma asked. "We can get a different judge assigned. No one needs to know you're related." "Step aside?" Malcolm laughed, but there was no humor in it. "In the middle of a high-profile case with the councilman and half the city watching? It would look like I'm hiding something." "Aren't you?" a voice said from the doorway. Tucker Wilder leaned against the door frame, a bailiff hovering uncertainly behind him. "How did you—" Malcolm began. "Relax." Tucker lifted his hands. "Your watchdog here walked me in. He figured 2 Wilder brothers in one room was safer if someone else was present." The bailiff looked apologetic. "He insisted on speaking to you before the recess ends, Your Honor. Said it was urgent." Malcolm dismissed him with a curt nod. The door closed again. The silence between the brothers thickened. Up close, Tucker looked older than Malcolm remembered, but stronger too. Hard-earned lines cut across his forehead, but his shoulders were squared, his gaze steady. "You haven't changed," Tucker said finally. "Still acting like the bench is a throne." "And you still act like rules don't apply to you," Malcolm replied. "You can't just barge into my courtroom?" "Your courtroom is about to send my kids to prison," Tucker shot back. "Barging in felt appropriate." Gemma cleared her throat. "Mr. Wilder, I have to remind you, anything you say here could be used—" "I know how the system works," Tucker interrupted. "I watched it work on me." He took a step closer to Malcolm's desk. "I didn't know about them," Malcolm said abruptly. The confession surprised even him. "Celeste and Jalen. Maya never told me." Tucker's eyes flashed. "She didn't tell you because she knew what you'd say. Should have chosen better. Should have worked harder. Should have stayed in line." His voice dipped into a mocking echo. "Isn't that your favorite sermon, little brother?" Memories flickered. Their father's booming voice, the way he'd looked at Tucker like he was a stain on the family name. The night of the bar fight, the ultimatum at the kitchen table, Malcolm watching, frozen, as Tucker was thrown out of the house. "We're not children anymore," Malcolm said stiffly. "This is a courtroom, not our father's dining room." "Funny," Tucker replied. "Feels exactly the same." Gemma shifted, uncomfortable. "We should focus on the case," she said. "Mr. Wilder, the evidence—" "What evidence?" Tucker asked. "Grainy security footage that could be anyone in an orange hoodie? A guard who changes his story every time he tells it? A councilman who stands to benefit if those kids take the fall?" Gemma bristled. "That's a serious accusation." "So is calling twin honor roll students delinquents in open court," Tucker shot back. "But I heard you didn't object to that either, Ms. Ford." Color rose in her cheeks. She looked away. Malcolm's fingers dug into the edge of his desk. "This conversation is over," he said. "If you want to advocate for them, hire a lawyer. Follow the process." "Oh, I did," Tucker said, a slow, almost dangerous calm settling over his features. "You'll be seeing her after recess." He turned to go, then paused. "You always talked about the law like it was clean," he said quietly. "Pure. But you know better, Malcolm. You've seen how it bends towards people with power and money. You've helped it bend." Malcolm's chest tightened. "I apply the law as written." "Yeah," Tucker said. "Funny how as written always seems to hit black kids the hardest." He walked out without waiting for a reply. Gemma watched him go, then looked at Malcolm. "Is any of that true?" she asked. "About the councilman?" Malcolm didn't answer right away. In his mind, he saw the budget requests he'd co-signed, The closed-door meetings about the pilot program, the quiet understanding that harsher sentencing played well with certain voters. "It's irrelevant," he said finally. "You have a case to prosecute. I have a docket to manage." "And 2 kids," Gemma said softly. "Caught in the middle." She left, the door closing gently behind her. Malcolm sank into his chair, the leather groaning under his weight. For the first time in years, the framed certificate on the wall, Honorable Malcolm Wilder, felt heavier than the wood that held it. In 30 minutes, he would have to walk back out there, put the black robe on again, and pretend none of this rattled him. But for the first time since he'd taken the bench, he wasn't sure he believed his own performance. When court resumed, the energy in the room had shifted. The gallery was packed now. Reporters, community activists, curious onlookers who had heard Judge's brother crash his hearing and come running. The air hummed with barely contained chaos. Celeste sat beside Jalen at the defense table, heart pounding. She kept her eyes on her hands, on the faint ink-smeared reminder written on her wrist from days ago. Tell the truth. Always. It felt almost cruel now. "Call the case," Malcolm said, voice steady but tight. "State v. Celeste Bradford and Jalen Bradford," the clerk recited. "Charges, attempted tampering with official records, obstruction of justice, trespassing." "The state is ready, Your Honor," Gemma said, rising. "The defense," began the overworked public defender who had barely glanced at them that morning. "Won't be needed," another voice cut in. Every head swiveled. A woman in a fitted navy suit stepped into the well like she owned it. Dark brown skin, natural curls swept back, eyes sharp behind slim glasses. Her heels clicked a deliberate rhythm against the floor. "Giselle Blackwood," she introduced herself, handing documents to the clerk and then to Gemma in one smooth motion. "I'm entering my appearance as counsel for the defendants, filed electronically during recess." Gemma's eyebrows shot up. "Giselle Blackwood, as in the attorney who successfully sued the city over its unlawful stop-and-frisk program." "Yes," Giselle replied. "We can trade resumes later." Her gaze shifted to Celeste and Jalen, softening. "You two okay?" she asked quietly. "No," Jalen said honestly, "but I'm glad you're here." Celeste nodded, throat too tight to speak. Malcolm's jaw tightened. "Ms. Blackwood, this is a juvenile matter. Your involvement seems disproportionate." "On the contrary," Giselle said, "it's perfectly proportionate to the stakes. Your Honor." The pause before the title wasn't lost on anyone. "If there are no objections," she continued, "I'd like to address bail." "Bail has already been," Malcolm started. "Set at an amount their mother can't possibly afford," Giselle finished. "Based on a risk assessment form that magically decided 2 honor students with no prior record are a flight risk because they live in a low-income zip code. I move to reconsider." Murmurs rippled through the gallery. This was not the sleepy, predetermined hearing people had expected. Gemma swallowed. "The state stands by its bail recommendation, Your Honor. The defendants were found in a secure area with sensitive records." "Sensitive records," Giselle repeated, turning to the judge. "Such as those detailing the diversion program that was supposed to keep kids like them out of jail? The same program that appears to have had its funds diverted to a private foundation chaired by... Remind me who again?" Her eyes met Malcolm's, unblinking. The tension in the room pulled tight like a wire. "You are dangerously close to contempt, Ms. Blackwood," Malcolm said, voice low. "Am I?" she replied gently. "Or am I simply drawing a line between public records and public consequences?" Tucker sat in the front row, hands folded tightly, watching every flicker of expression on his brother's face. Celeste looked from one adult to another, dizzy. She wasn't used to anyone fighting this hard for her. Her mother had always fought in quiet ways, extra shifts, late-night prayers, but this was different, loud, public, dangerous. In light of the defendant's ties to the community, lack of prior record, and the fact that this investigation is far from complete, Giselle said, turning back to the bench, I move for their immediate release on their own recognizance. With all due respect, Your Honor, the optics of keeping your own niece and nephew in detention while evidence of financial misconduct involving your judicial partners swirls around us are not great. The words niece and nephew detonated in the room. Even the court reporter's fingers stumbled on the keys. Malcolm's grip on the bench tightened. That familial relationship is not part of this record, he said, though his voice had lost some of its certainty. It is now, Giselle replied calmly, because Tucker Wilder is listed as their father on their birth certificates, and because the public has a right to know if the man deciding their fate has a personal history with them he failed to disclose. Gemma closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, she looked at Malcolm. Your Honor, she said carefully, perhaps we should reassess, just on bail, for now. He heard the subtext. This looks bad, very bad. His father's voice echoed in his head again. Wilder men don't back down, we rule. But another voice, smaller, cut through, the sound of Celeste's earlier testimony at arraignment when she'd choked out, we didn't do anything wrong. We just wanted to see where the money went. He exhaled slowly. Bail is reduced to signature bond, he said at last. Defendants will be released to their mother's custody under standard conditions. Next hearing in 2 weeks. Giselle nodded, relief flickering across her face for just a second. Thank you, Your Honor. The gavel came down. As shackles were removed and paperwork shuffled, Tucker leaned forward, catching Celeste's gaze. For the first time, she saw something raw in his eyes. Not just anger, but guilt. She looked away. Giselle packed her briefcase, then leaned close to the twins. Listen, she said quietly. This fight is bigger than you, but it started with you. You gave them a chance to do the right thing by telling the truth. They didn't take it. So now we make them. How? Celeste whispered. By digging, Giselle answered. Into the budget. Into the security footage. Into who benefits if these charges stick. And if they don't? Jalen asked. Giselle's smile was grim. Then someone else will have a very bad day. Tucker rose as they were led out to processing. He caught Malcolm's eye one more time. That was the first right decision you've made in a long time, he said quietly. Don't let it be the last. Malcolm didn't respond, but his fingers resting on the bench trembled. That night, Gemma Ford sat alone in her office, the light from her computer casting harsh shadows on the walls. The file on her screen, Bradford, Celeste, and Jalen, refused to stay neat and tidy no matter how many times she tried to stack the facts. Security footage. Grainy, time-stamped, showing 2 figures in hoodies entering a restricted room where records were stored. Guard's statement initially said he saw them messing with the computer. Later revisions softened that to standing near. Police report referenced tip from anonymous source about potential data breach attempts by local youth activists. Then there was the diversion program paperwork. Gemma pulled up the budget spreadsheets Reeves's office had grudgingly provided, only after being served a subpoena by Giselle Blackwood, which still stung. She scrolled. Year 1, full funding, after-school programs thriving. Year 2, unexplained cuts. Funds redirected to something labeled Wilder Foundation, Youth Accountability Pilot. Year 3, the center closed, more kids in detention, a spike in her own juvenile caseload. Gemma stared at the numbers, stomach twisting. Her career had been built on the belief that she could change the system from the inside, that if she prosecuted fairly, if she followed the rules and respected the law, the outcomes would improve. But the more she looked at these documents, the more it felt like she had been decorating a house whose foundation was already rotting. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She considered ignoring it, but something, maybe the day's chaos, made her swipe. "Ford," she said. "You don't know me," a woman's voice said, low and urgent. "But I know you're prosecuting the Bradford twins. Who is this?" "Someone in over her head," the woman replied. "And running out of time." Gemma's hand tightened on the phone. "If you have information relevant to the case—" "I do," the caller interrupted. "The footage. It's not what it looks like. They changed it." "Who changed it?" Silence crackled on the other end. Gemma heard the rush of traffic, the blare of a horn. "They're watching everything," the woman whispered. "If they know I talked to you—" "Ma'am, I can't help you if I don't know who you are or what you're talking about." Another beat of hesitation. "I work IT for the councilman's office," the voice said finally. "Name's Lena. I was asked to clean up some security files right after the arrest. Something about removing confusion for the public narrative." Gemma's heart thudded. "Clean up how?" "The original footage didn't show the kids touching anything," Lena said. "They just looked upset. The guard was the one who went to the computer, not them. But the version the police got, it's different angles, different cuts. Someone spliced in older footage to make it look worse." Gemma swallowed hard. "Can you prove that?" "I backed up a copy before they changed it," Lena said. "On a drive. If I turn it over, they'll know it was me." "Then we can protect you," Gemma said. "Witness protection, whistleblower statutes." Lena laughed bitterly. "You really believe those things work the way they say they do?" "I believe I can do my job," Gemma replied. The words felt weaker than usual. "Bring me the drive. Let me try." Silence. Then, "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., by the fountain outside the old library. Come alone." The line went dead. Gemma sat in the quiet office, phone still pressed to her ear. She knew what she was supposed to do: report the call, tell her supervisor, let the system absorb it. But she also knew what would happen. The information would be buried, the witness intimidated, the twins' case fast-tracked for the good of the program. Her eyes drifted to the framed commendation on her wall. "For upholding the highest ideals of justice." "What are those ideals exactly?" she murmured. She closed the laptop slowly and reached for her coat. For the first time in her career, Gemma Ford decided she was going to break the rules in order to follow the law. The next morning, the fountain by the old library sputtered weakly, its water stained green with age. Gemma checked her watch. 9:58. At 10:02, a woman in a faded hoodie and jeans slid onto the bench beside her, eyes hidden behind big sunglasses. "You came alone," Lena said. "You sound surprised." Lena gave a humorless smile. "You'd be amazed how many people say they want the truth but bring backup just in case." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small USB drive, closing her fist around it before Gemma could take it. "I'm not a hero," she said. "I just couldn't sleep. Not after I saw their faces on TV." Gemma pictured Celeste standing there in cuffs, lifting her chin when the judge mocked her. Jalen trying to crack jokes through fear. "What they're doing with this program," Lena continued, voice shaking, "it's not about helping kids. It's about numbers. How many arrests they can show, how much grant money they can claim, and if a few teenagers get chewed up in the process." Her voice broke. Gemma reached out slowly. "Let me help them," she said. "And if I can, I'll help you too." Lena opened her hand and dropped the drive into Gemma's palm. "Don't call me," she said. "If I have more, I'll find you." She got up and walked away without looking back. Gemma sat for a long moment, the small piece of plastic feeling heavier than any case file. Then she stood, squared her shoulders, and headed for her car. One way or another, this was going to blow everything open. Celeste sat on the edge of her bed, feeling like a stranger in her own room. The posters on the wall, science fair ribbons, photos with friends, college brochures, looked like artifacts from someone else's life. Someone who didn't have a court date circled in red on the calendar. Her mother moved quietly in the hallway, phone pressed to her ear, whispering to yet another relative about praying for the truth to come out. Jalen lay on the floor, tossing a basketball up and catching it. "You ever think about running?" he asked suddenly. "Like, just disappearing?" "Where?" Celeste asked. "We don't have money, we don't have passports, and you get lost going downtown without GPS." "You know what I mean." She did. "If we run," she said softly, "they'll say that means we're guilty, and they'll drag Mom through hell on top of it." He caught the ball and pressed it to his chest. "Feels like they're gonna do that anyway." There was a knock at the door. "I got it," Celeste said quickly, grateful for the interruption. When she opened it, Giselle Blackwood stood on the landing, briefcase in hand. "Can I come in?" she asked. "Yeah, of course." Giselle stepped inside, taking in the modest apartment, the nervous energy in the air. She greeted Jalen, nodded to Maya in the hallway, then turned back to the twins. "I won't lie to you," she said. "This case just got a lot more complicated." "That's supposed to make us feel better?" Jalen grumbled. "It's supposed to make you feel seen," Giselle replied. "Complicated means we're pulling on threads, and things are starting to unravel." She sat at the table and opened her briefcase, pulling out a laptop. "Your hearing is in 3 days," she said. "The state may try to push for a plea deal, something that sounds lighter than the full charges but still puts a conviction on your record." Maya's face tightened. "They already came to my job," she admitted. "Said if the kids plead guilty, they'd recommend community service instead of jail time. Make it all go away." Celeste's chest constricted. "Would it?" Giselle met her gaze. "On paper, maybe," she said, "but that conviction would follow you. College applications, job applications. Every time someone ran a background check, it would whisper, 'untrustworthy.'" "You're saying don't take it," Jalen said. "I'm saying," Giselle replied, "that if you're telling the truth, you shouldn't have to carry a lie for the rest of your life just to make their numbers look good." Celeste's throat burned. "But what if the judge doesn't listen?" she asked. "He already thinks we're criminals. He didn't even know we were related until today, and he still—" She broke off, shaking her head. Giselle closed the laptop gently. "Then we make it harder for him not to listen," she said. "We show him what really happened, and we make sure the whole city is watching when we do." "What really happened?" Maya repeated, voice trembling. "They were just standing there. They didn't touch anything." "Did you try to stop them?" Giselle asked Celeste quietly. "When you saw the records room, the computer?" Celeste swallowed. "I shouldn't have looked," she said. "I knew it was restricted. But when I saw those numbers, the budget reallocation, You got angry," Giselle finished. "Because you care." "That's not an excuse," Celeste said. "I'm always telling people online, do your activism the right way. Don't give them a reason to arrest you." And then I walked right into the stereotype. Loud black girl causing a scene. "You told the truth," Giselle said. "In a place that was built on pretending. That's not a stereotype. That's courage." "Courage that got us arrested," Jalen muttered. Giselle turned to him. "What about you?" she asked. "Do you regret what you did?" He looked at the ceiling. "I regret not dragging her out of there when I had the chance," he said finally. "But I don't regret standing next to her." Celeste glanced at him, surprised. "I'm your brother," he said with a shrug. "You think I'm gonna let you get tackled by security alone?" Giselle nodded slowly. "I need you both to understand something," she said. "Responsibility isn't just about doing what authority tells you. It's about owning your choices. The good ones and the bad ones. You walk toward the truth when most people look away. That scares people who benefit from the lie." She reached into her bag and pulled out a printed still image from a video. Celeste recognized the grainy hallway. This is from the original security footage, Giselle said, courtesy of a very brave source. In the image, she and Jalen stood by the door, faces tight with anger. The guard loomed over them, hand on his radio. The computer sat several feet away, untouched. This is what really happened, Giselle said. The version the police got has been edited. We'll prove that in court. And when we do, their whole case will start to crumble. Maya's knees buckled slightly. She gripped the back of a chair. So they framed my children? They framed anyone who threatened their narrative, Giselle said. Today it's your kids. Tomorrow it could be someone else's. Jalen looked at the photo, then at his sister. So what do we do now? He asked. Now, Giselle said, folding the image carefully. You get some sleep. You eat. You let me and Mr. Wilder work on the strategy. Mr. Wilder? Celeste echoed. Tucker? Giselle clarified. Your father. The word felt strange in Celeste's mouth. He doesn't get to just show up now and be part of the strategy, she said, anger flaring. Giselle studied her. You're allowed to be angry, she said. You're allowed to tell him exactly what you think. But right now, he's one more person who's willing to stand up in a room full of people who expect you to stay quiet. That doesn't fix years of him being gone, Celeste said. No, Giselle agreed. But it might keep you from losing the years ahead. Silence settled over the room. Maya wiped at her eyes. We'll fight, she said. However long it takes. Celeste stared at her wrist again. Tell the truth, always. Responsibility, she realized, wasn't just about staying out of trouble. Sometimes it was about walking straight into it, if that was the only way to bring the truth into the light. Okay, she said quietly. Let's do this. The courtroom was overflowing on the day of the evidentiary hearing. News cameras lined the back wall. Activists held signs outside. Kids, not numbers. Truth over tough on crime. Someone had drawn a caricature of Councilman Reeves shaking hands with a shadowy figure labeled Prison Prophets. Inside, Celeste and Jalen sat at the defense table in borrowed church clothes instead of jumpsuits. The fabric of Celeste's blouse felt stiff against her skin. She smoothed it with damp palms. Hey, Jalen murmured. You look like you're about to take the SAT. I'd rather be taking the SAT, she muttered. Giselle stood next to them, flipping through her notes. Tucker sat directly behind the twins, his presence a solid weight at their backs. On the other side, Gemma Ford organized her files, expression unreadable. Then Malcolm Wilder walked in. The room rose as one. He took the bench slowly, eyes sweeping over the crowd. For the briefest moment, his gaze caught on Celeste's. Something like regret flickered there. Be seated, he said. The clerk called the case. Formalities ticked by. Then Giselle rose. Your Honor, the defense moves to admit newly discovered evidence regarding the authenticity of the state's key exhibit, namely the security footage allegedly showing my clients tampering with official records. Gemma stood. The state objects to any characterization of the footage as inauthentic. Objection is noted, Malcolm said. Proceed, Ms. Blackwood. Giselle plugged a drive into the court's AV system. 2 videos appeared on the screen, side by side. On the left, she said, the footage provided to the defense in discovery. On the right, the original file recovered from the councilman's internal server by a whistleblower. She hit play. On both screens, 2 hoodie-clad figures entered the hallway. But that was where the similarities ended. In the state's version, the twins moved suspiciously close to the records room door. The camera angle seemed almost perfectly positioned to frame them as looming over the computer. In the original, a different angle showed clearly that they stopped several feet away. The guard stepped into frame, agitated, jabbing a finger at them. He moved to the computer himself, typing something before turning back to call for backup. Gasps filled the room. Pause, Giselle said. Both videos froze. As the court can see, she said crisply, someone altered the footage to shift culpability from a city employee to two teenagers. We have metadata showing the edits were made on a workstation in Councilman Reeves's office. We also have testimony, under seal for now, from the IT staffer ordered to make those changes. She turned to face the bench. This is not a misunderstanding, she said. It is fabrication, and it goes to the heart of the state's case. Gemma's throat worked. She rose slowly. Your Honor, she said, voice unsteady, the state was not aware of any alterations to the footage. We received it from law enforcement in good faith. Then the chain of bad faith is simply longer than we thought, Giselle replied. All eyes shifted to Malcolm. His head pounded. This was more than just a messy case now. This was a reckoning. Miss Ford, he said, does the state have any explanation for these discrepancies? Gemma looked around the room, in particular at the deputy DA seated in the second row, watching her with thinly veiled warning. She thought of the USB drive in her pocket, the copy she'd made before turning it over. Then she took a breath. The state has an obligation to seek justice, not just convictions, she said. In light of this evidence, we move to withdraw the video exhibit and request an immediate independent investigation into the handling of this case. There was a rustle of shock. The deputy DA's face went stony. Additionally, Gemma continued, I am moving to dismiss all charges against the defendants with prejudice. Celeste's heart stopped. She gripped the edge of the table. Ms. Ford, Malcolm said slowly, you understand the implications of this motion? Yes, Your Honor, she said. Her voice shook, but she held his gaze. I also understand the implications of sending two innocent teenagers to prison to protect the reputations of powerful men. The room buzzed. Whispers, the rapid tapping of reporters' thumbs. Giselle watched her with new respect. It takes courage to turn the gun away from the target and toward the hand holding it, she thought. Malcolm looked down at the two files before him, the original footage and the doctored one. The discrepancy felt like a mirror, reflecting his own career, what he'd told himself the law was, and what it had been used for. He could dodge. He could accept the dismissal quietly, call for a closed-door investigation, let the machine reabsorb the scandal. Or he could do what he had sworn to do long ago, before ambition and legacy and his father's voice had twisted that oath. He straightened. The motion to dismiss, he said slowly, is granted. The words seemed to echo in the room. Furthermore, he added, voice gaining strength as he spoke, this court is referring this matter to the State Attorney General's office, the Judicial Oversight Committee, and the Civilian Review Board for immediate investigation into prosecutorial misconduct, evidence tampering, and potential corruption involving the councilman's office and the Wilder Foundation's youth program. Gasps turned into outright exclamations. Reporters nearly leaped from their seats. Giselle's eyes widened. She hadn't expected him to go that far. Neither had Tucker. On the bench, Malcolm felt something unclench in his chest. It was terrifying. It was freeing. The justice system, he said, voice carrying, does not exist to feed numbers into a political machine. It exists to find the truth. When it fails in that duty, we must not look away, even when the failure includes ourselves. He met Celeste's eyes. Miss Bradford, he said, this court owes you and your brother an apology. You told the truth about what you saw. The system around you did not. Celeste's eyes burned. For a second, she hated him for saying it now, when the damage had already been done. But another part of her, the part that had written endless scholarship essays about responsibility and truth, understood. Because taking responsibility after you've messed up is still better than pretending you never did. As the crowd spilled out of the courtroom, a storm of cameras and questions, the headlines were already forming. Judge calls out corruption in own courtroom. Teen twins exonerated, investigation launched. Tough on crime, program under fire for the city. It was the beginning of a scandal. For Celeste and Jalen, it was the first breath of air after nearly drowning. The fallout came fast. Within a week, Councilman Reeves held a press conference attempting to spin the administrative irregularities as the fault of rogue staffers. Lena, safely relocated thanks to whistleblower counsel arranged by Giselle, watched on TV and threw popcorn at the screen. Within 2 weeks, the deputy DA who had pressured Gemma to stay on message quietly resigned to spend more time with family. The detective who had signed off on the altered footage found himself under investigation. And within a month, the Judicial Oversight Committee announced that it was opening a formal inquiry into Judge Malcolm Wilder's handling of not just the Bradford case, but several others connected to the youth program. The words in the letter were polite. The message was not. "We're coming for you, too." Malcolm read the notice alone in his chambers, the afternoon light slanting through the blinds. The black robe hung on a hook nearby, suddenly heavier. He had known this was coming. He had written some of the memos that created this program. He had signed off on sentencing guidelines that pushed kids toward detention instead of diversion. He had sat in donors' living rooms and nodded when they talked about cleaning up the streets. He had called kids like Celeste and Jalen delinquents because it was easier than admitting that the system was built to see them that way. "Judge?" He looked up. Gemma stood in the doorway, having knocked softly. "You got it," she said, nodding at the paper in his hand. "I did." She stepped inside. "They're not just looking at this one case," she warned. "They're going to dig deep. Years." "I know. You could have played it differently," she said carefully. "Granted the dismissal quietly, blamed everything on the councilman, let the machine chew him up while you stayed. Above it?" "I could have," Malcolm agreed. "A year ago, I probably would have." He set the letter down. "What made you change?" she asked. He considered the question. "Tucker showing up," he said, "calling me out, seeing the kids and realizing they're exactly who this program was supposed to help, not harm. Realizing that somewhere along the way, I stopped asking whether what we were doing was actually right, and only asked whether it was legal and politically convenient." He looked at her. "And you?" he asked. "You went against your own office. That wasn't a small decision." Gemma smiled sadly. "I got into this work because I believed I could do good," she said. "I woke up one morning and realized I was just efficient. I don't want my legacy to be, she was really good at convicting people." They sat in silence for a moment. "You know they might remove you from the bench," she said gently. He nodded. "That's the karma, isn't it?" he said. "You can't benefit from a broken system for years and expect to walk away clean just because you finally admitted it's broken." "Does it scare you?" she asked. He thought of his father's voice, the weight of his expectations, the echoed words. "Wilder men are meant to rule." "Yes," he said, "it terrifies me. But it scares me more," he said quietly, "to imagine looking Celeste Bradford in the eye and pretending I don't owe her more than a quiet private apology." Outside the courthouse, Celeste and Jalen sat on the steps, watching kids ride past on bikes. "You think they'll actually fix anything?" Jalen asked, leaning back on his elbows. Celeste shrugged. "They'll make a show of fixing things," she said. "New policies, new training. Maybe some of it will stick. Maybe not." "That's optimistic." "That's realistic," she replied. "We're not the first people this happened to, and we probably won't be the last." He looked at her. "You regret it? Saying something that night?" She thought about it. "I regret the way it went down," she said honestly. "I regret Mom crying herself to sleep. I regret that you had to hear a judge call us delinquents. But I don't regret wanting to know where the money went, she said. I don't regret being angry that they shut down the center instead of cutting their own salaries. She smiled faintly. And I don't regret that now the whole city knows, too. A car pulled up at the curb. Tucker got out, hands in his pockets. Hey, he said, almost cautiously. Hey, Jalen replied, less hostile than before. You two got a minute? Tucker asked. There's someone I want you to meet. They exchanged a look, then shrugged. We're not exactly busy, Celeste said. Tucker led them down the street to a building they recognized, the old community center. Except now the plywood had been ripped from the windows. Fresh paint covered graffiti. A new sign hung above the door, Blackwood Bradford Youth Justice Hub. What is this? Celeste breathed. An idea, Tucker said. Giselle's mostly. But she said it needed your name on it, too. Ms. Responsibility and Truth. He pushed the door open. Inside, volunteers were hauling in boxes, setting up tables. A few kids played cards in a corner. On one wall, a mural was being sketched. Figures holding megaphones and books, scales of justice tipping toward the people instead of the cells. We're going to offer legal clinics, Tucker said. Tutoring, know your rights workshops, a place for kids to come after school instead of nowhere. He looked at them. If you want to be involved, he said, I'd like that. Celeste stared at the mural, throat thick. Why now? She asked. Why all this effort now? Tucker took a deep breath. Because I spent years being mad at the system, he said, and at your uncle, and at everyone who ever wrote me off. It was easier to stay gone than to show up and be reminded of everything I'd lost. He met her eyes. And then I saw your faces on the news, he said. And I realized I was doing the same thing to you that the system did to me. Writing you off before you had a chance. Silence. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said. Not today, maybe not ever. But I do expect myself to do better. Starting here. Jalen glanced at Celeste. I mean, he said slowly, if someone's offering us a building and a budget to cause constructive trouble. Celeste huffed a laugh through her tears. You just want a place to record your mixtapes. And hold rallies, he said, and help kids not get railroaded like we almost did. She looked at Tucker again. Responsibility and truth, she said softly. That's what I wrote my scholarship essay about. I know, he said. Her eyes widened. You read it? Maya sent me a draft months ago, he admitted. Said, you might not be ready to be a father, but at least see who your daughter is becoming. He shrugged. Took me a while, he said. Longer than it should have. For the first time, Celeste felt something shift, not forgiveness, not yet. But maybe the first step toward it. Okay, she said. We'll help. But this place has to be real, not some photo op for your guilt. Tucker smiled faintly. Deal. The day of Malcolm Wilder's disciplinary hearing, the building felt colder than usual. He arrived without his robe, wearing a simple dark suit. The title Judge was still attached to his name on the program, but everyone knew that might not be true for much longer. The panel of oversight commissioners sat at a long table, binders open. Reporters hovered near the back. A few members of the public had come too. Among them were Celeste, Jalen, Maya, Tucker, Giselle, and Gemma. Are we sure we want to see this? Maya asked quietly. Yes, Celeste said. If he's going to talk about us, we should be here to hear it. The hearing began with formal recitations. Cases reviewed, patterns in sentencing, charts showing disproportionate impacts on black youth, memos with Malcolm's signature at the bottom. Do you deny authoring these documents? The chair asked. I don't, Malcolm said. His voice was calm. I wrote them. I believed at the time that stricter measures would deter crime. And now? And now, he said, looking directly at the panel, I see that what I framed as deterrence often functioned as punishment for being poor and black in this city. Pens paused over notepads. In the Bradford case, another commissioner said, you referred to the defendants as twin delinquents before hearing full argument. Do you consider that appropriate judicial conduct? No, he said simply. It was biased. It was unprofessional. And it was cruel. Murmurs rippled through the room. Why did you do it? The commissioner pressed. He thought of his father again, of all the ways he had tried not to be him and all the ways he had failed. Because somewhere along the way, Malcolm said, I started believing that my job was to project strength, not humility, to control my courtroom, not serve the people in it. And because I allowed my own prejudices, about race, about class, even about my own brother, to color how I saw those kids before I ever really looked at them. He glanced toward Celeste and Jalen. If they had not had an advocate like Ms. Blackwood, he said, if Ms. Ford had not chosen to act with integrity, if a whistleblower had not risked everything, we would have railroaded them, and I would have signed my name to it. That is the truth. The room was very quiet. So, the chair said, what do you believe should happen now? Gasps fluttered. It wasn't a typical question, but Malcolm knew the answer. I should be removed from the bench, he said. At least temporarily. I should undergo whatever education, training, and supervision this body deems necessary, and I should make myself available to testify in any proceedings about how this program was implemented, including my own role in it. That is unusually candid, one commissioner observed. It's also unusually late, Malcolm said. I don't expect praise for finally telling the truth about damage I helped create. I can only try to stop doing harm, and if possible, to help repair it. He sat down. The panel withdrew to deliberate. In the hallway, Celeste and Jalen stood near the window, watching clouds bunch over the city. You think he means it? Jalen asked. Celeste frowned. I think he meant it today, she said. I don't know about tomorrow, but today is a start. Giselle joined them. Whatever they decide, she said, his testimony will help other kids challenge their sentences. That matters. Is that karma? Jalen asked. Him losing the job he worshipped? It's part of it, Giselle said. But karma isn't just punishment, it's consequence. It's reality catching up. Tucker came over, hands in his pockets. Hey, he said. We, ordered pizza at the youth hub, for after. Thought you might want to come. Blow off steam. Celeste smiled faintly. Only if Jalen promises not to rap over every song, she said. No deal, Jalen said immediately. They all laughed, the sound a little fragile but real. Soon after, the commissioners returned. It didn't take long. Judge Malcolm Wilder was suspended from the bench pending further measures, with a strong recommendation for removal. He accepted the decision without argument. Outside, microphones swarmed him. He spoke briefly, acknowledging harm, declining to play the victim. Redemption is not mine to declare, he said into the cameras. It belongs to the people I hurt. All I can do is tell the truth and live with the consequences. Celeste watched from a distance. Does it help? Maya asked her quietly. Seeing him pay something? A little, Celeste said. But it doesn't give us back the days in lockup or undo what we saw. No, Maya said. That part. We have to heal ourselves. With help. From the right people. Celeste slipped her hand into her mother's. Come on, she said. We have a youth hub to build. If you're still here, listening to Celeste and Jalen's story, take a breath with me for a moment. In this courtroom, we watched a judge humiliate two teenagers, a system twist the truth, and powerful people try to turn kids into statistics. But we also saw something else. A father finally taking responsibility, A prosecutor choosing conscience over career, a lawyer refusing to stay quiet, and two young people who held on to the truth even when it cost them everything. That's the heart of this story. Responsibility and truth don't erase the damage, but they're the only way forward. Real redemption comes with consequences, not instead of them. If this story moved you, please like this video so more people can hear it, share it with someone who needs courage to stand up, and subscribe to this channel for more powerful stories about justice, karma, and hope. Thank you for listening, and may you always choose truth, even when it's hard.